Okay, so we'll start the meeting, we'll do approval of minutes, and then we have privilege of the floor. So, why don't we just go around and do roll call, Carol Carey,
Jeff Corbin.
Jonathan Marr.
you wanna do the public?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys can remember yourself.
Marlene Laux.
Ayoko Maya.
Albert Myra.
Leo Bushman. Trish Bergami.
Laura Robinson.
Linda Shaketi.
Okay, great. So, the first thing is the approval of December's, no, January's meeting minutes. Did anybody have any comments? I had a couple, but,
Yeah, I had a couple small.
okay, John, why don't you go first?
I noticed we don't have a line division.
I realized after Laura sent out the packet, so
Okay, so.
we have a new person doing the minutes and
The
he
interim.
missed that.
We can add it later
I
though.
guess this is the second page. 1, 2, fifth line from the bottom. Talking about the supervisor's planting. The supervisor planted the single tree, right? So if you're planting the trees.
There were actually, well, on that day, it was only one. Yeah, we only had the dogwood.
Yeah.
We got the rising sun later.
The comment was about how the residents were not. They visited the other stuff rather than the supervisor planting a tree.
So we'll change it to tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you have anything else on that paragraph? Because I had something there too, John.
Well, at the end of that sentence, I was going to recommend, instead of would not leave them for the supervisor, but would not leave them for the supervisor's tree planting. Because it wasn't like the supervisor herself that they were opposed to. Right,
Oh.
problem.
Yeah, that's good clarification.
And I wanted to add there on the second line, Ms. Carey noted that there would need to be better organization of Arbor Day. I think Arbor Day was organized very well. I think it was of the town tree planting, as the supervisors planting the trees occurred when many attendants were actually in line for picking up their trees. And then on the last sentence on that page, Miss Carey spoke about the source of the trees handed out that day. I knew that we had both Saratoga and Schenectady. So I think we should reword it. I mean, Laura, you and I had talked.
Yeah, we did talk about that. Yeah.
And so I knew that last year we picked up trees from both Saratoga and Schenectady. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we were trying to say here. And we will do that.
This year too.
And we'll do that this year also, I guess is how we should change it.
Yeah. I read that and I was like, But I mean, Jack was listening to the video. He must just not understood. We could re-listen and then clarify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't remember what we were exactly saying, but I do remember we bought them from both
Last year.
that last year and that we were thinking of looking at both again this year.
Mhm.
So that was kind of the intent of that.
Make sure
You are recording.
Yep. Make sure you talk loudly because you're in the market.
Okay.
I didn't bring my.
Okay. Any other comments?
On the next page,
Okay.
in section 2, 2000, we go on to the fourth paragraph. The middle line there's an A space S, or I guess it's the word as. But actually, I think we better to end that first sentence and start a new sentence.
Wait, where are we?
The fourth paragraph.
For section
Here.
2 on page 2.
Second paragraph?
Fourth paragraph. This one right here.
Oh, in regard to? Oh, Mr. Darren.
Ms.
I gotcha.
Ms.
Okay.
Perry recommends the master plan list item be changed to review and update master planting. I mean, period.
Oh, I see.
And then as this gets completed, it will make it easier, some stuff. So,
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
yes, so
That's done.
yeah, that's it. Wait a minute, there was another, it was just some comments. Section 6, discussion items. 1A, the first paragraph, the second line. The tree trim on either side of that, however.
Which paragraph?
The
Section 6, item 1A, first paragraph.
just to get a basic evaluation.
Yeah. Ms. Robertson said that it may be beneficial for a site visit to take place early on, however.
Just to get a basic.
Okay, gotcha, yeah. Anything else?
No,
John?
not
We definitely need 5 minutes.
And then I saw it, it's like, this is the worst committee not to do.
Leo, did you have any? Or are there any comments? Those were all the comments I had. So does somebody want to make a motion to approve? With Okay. Jeff made the motion. Anyone in a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so next is privilege of the floor. And it looks like we definitely have some people here tonight, so. Do you wanna?
I'll start.
Okay.
So my name is Albert Myrer. I live at 1166 Ruffner Road. My wife and I moved here with our 2 kids, 25 years ago, more or less. And we picked Ruffner primarily because we like the neighborhood. So big trees, old growth trees. It was just a very inviting, friendly, nice neighborhood. So what I've noticed in the last 2 or 3 years is there's a lot of change going on. You know, many of our neighbors are getting older. We're getting older. Everybody's getting older. But people are changing houses and younger people are moving in. It's fine. They've got kids and they're nice neighbors for the most part. But they don't seem to value the trees. So I'll give you 3 instances. Immediately close to our house, which is troubling to us and in the larger sense, troubling that Niskuna doesn't seem to have any rules, regulations, or bylaws or anything to stop what seems to be egregious. So the first instance is there's a strip. I don't know if you're familiar with Ruffner, but when it was developed, there's a little we thought green forever, basically wetlands. It's maybe 100 feet wide. That comes the back of our house, back of our property, and the back of Hedgewood. There's a little strip in there that originally had no cut to the road. It didn't access on Ruffner, Hedgewood, or Rosendale.
Mhm.
So I think the person who owned my house before me sold a right of way, and we got some permission from them. Anyway, by the time we came along, there was a house back there, which is now 1174 Ruffner. And so the people that are living there now are the 4th neighbors that have been in that house since we moved in 25 years ago. The first 3 were fine. They were happy with all the woods. So the whole strip from almost Rosendale, it doesn't have frontage on Rosendale, but almost Rosendale, all the way along almost the whole length of the first block of Ruffner has this strip of all woods, wetlands, ducks, deer, turkeys, fox, you know, wild dogs, everything lives back there. So the people that live there now bought it. They came in because of COVID. They were living in New York City. They've got small children. And I guess the guy grew up in Niskuna. His parents live in Niskuna. So this was perfect for him. Except that he's used to living in the city. He doesn't like trees. I don't know what the problem is. But last summer he decided that he was going to clear cut a little bit more than half an acre worth of old growth trees, more than 30 trees, like more than 2 feet in diameter, 50 feet tall. He got some company to come in there and they cut every single thing down. So now it's grass. And I asked him while this was going on, what's the plan? And he didn't really have a plan. It was going to be a garden. It was going to be a park for his kids to play in. It just turned into a grass field that gets mowed every once in a while in the summertime. So when I realized that they were cutting every single tree all the way along the whole length of my backyard, I called the town and I spoke to a couple of people, the building department and somebody else, and they didn't seem to have any regulation to stop that because it was private property. And But they did send somebody, some building inspector or somebody came out in the official of this unit truck. And he looked at it and talked to the homeowner and took some measurements, but decided, I guess it was okay. So
Nothing happened.
nothing happened. So then, inspired by that act, the guy at 1175 Edgewood, which is directly behind me, and I used to could not see his house because of all the trees, and he decided he's got a swimming pool in the backyard, and he had 3 large trees, 50 feet tall, of kind of beautiful hardwood trees, and he decided cut them all down because then his swimming pool will have more sunlight. And then he also cut down the 3 large hardwoods in his front yard because they might hit the house in some hurricane or high windstorm. So he literally almost cut down every tree in his yard, just whacked them all down. Nothing was wrong. They weren't dying. Just cut them all down. And then the last one just happened this week, it turns out, or last week, at 1131 Ruffner, right on the corner, practically Ruffner and Rosendale. There was an old guy that lived in the house. He died, and so I don't know who owned it, but somebody owned it, or it was for sale, and the ownership is in the process of changing. But there was this tree, literally, and you can go drive down Ruffner. The stump is like 4 feet in diameter. It's got to be 100 years old tree. The thing was like 80 feet tall, beautiful hardwood tree right in his front yard, not a danger to anything, and whack the thing down. And now they've got this big cylinder of the stump standing so you can see like exactly how big the diameter is. So it just, I don't know, it bothers me that this unit doesn't have any regulation or anything to say, if there's some reason, or if the tree is in danger of, like, if it's dead or dying or some, it makes sense. But just to clear cut half an acre with, I mean, if the guy was putting in a swimming pool, okay, that, maybe he needs a space to put in a swimming pool. But just to plant green grass when you have trees and animals, and that makes sense.
Yeah. I can speak just a little bit, and then Laura, I'll turn it over to you. There is a tree code that we do follow, but basically we only get involved when a development is going in, or if it's a street tree, which is the right of way. We don't really have any say or authority for what people do on their private property.
Right.
And so if a development is going in, we do walk the property, we do make recommendations to the town planning board that these big trees should be saved. And there is like a fine if they don't save them. But we don't really have any right or jurisdiction.
Right.
Jurisdiction.
Because it's
what's
private
on
property.
Private property,
Exactly.
and it's not on the street right away.
Right.
So, and Laura, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add.
Well, I would add 2 things to that probably. Because we don't have rules and we struggle because you're not the first neighbor that has come to us concerned about the trees that are coming down in their neighborhood. We definitely get that concern from time to time, and I actually think many of the members that sit here have that concern as well. And so one of the things they try to do is like educate and also like have people want to take value in their trees. So it may seem like little things, but that's why we do our photo contest, because we're trying to get people to take pictures of their big trees and be proud of them. And that's why we did our big tree hunt, because what we were hoping is that if somebody was able to find a very large tree in their yard and then get an award for it, it would discourage them obviously from taking it down. But it doesn't work on everyone. The single trees, the lines of trees and things like that, they can just be taken down without any inspection, building permit, anything like that. But it does sound like you did experience when it's over 10,000 square feet, it does need a building permit, but it's actually very hard for the building inspectors not to issue it. Yeah, they would have to. It has to be like on a
The
steep
building
slope
inspector
or
came out
something, and you
after the
probably
fact.
looked at it.
And,
Yeah.
Are there any wetlands?
That is the one thing with building permits that we are able to, if they propose to clear around the wetlands, we typically are able to keep them out of that. They're not allowed to clear within the wetlands.
I mean, this should be considered a wetland. I don't know if you're familiar with the area, but, you know, Ruffner's up here, Hedgewood's up here, and both of them drain down, and this is like the bottom of that valley.
So it's
And-
always water there.
And sometimes it's wet all summer long, it just never dries out. And so,
I think
I
it's
am-
defined how it is.
I brought it up on a map because I did, I do actually even remember that.
and actually, when the guys were out there working on it, they had to stop working because it was so wet because they were doing this back, I think it was either April or May last year. They actually, their equipment was getting bogged down, so they said, we gotta wait till it dries out a little bit.
So if it's defined as a wetland, then there are restrictions.
Yeah,
So what
Um,
was this
it wasn't defined as a wetland. Yeah,
by the definition under? Is it the?
I mean, by the Army Corps of
Corps of
Engineers,
Engineers.
yeah. We do have wet lawns and, you know,
Right, yeah.
yeah.
And we'll segue from that into the development that they're planning to do that,
Yeah, go ahead.
that we think is wetland. You know.
Are there town ordinances? in Places of work that.
The trees?
Yep.
I have seen some. Where I see them most often is in Long Island. Like down in the pretty old established suburbs in Long Island, they do have some regulations for private trees. I don't know of any kind of in communities adjacent to us. But I have seen them and they do exist in New York.
Well, one thing to
Something
consider
talk to
that the town might consider is if somebody has a tree bigger than a certain diameter or taller than a certain, that maybe before they cut it down, they're required to like notify the neighbors, have some discussion about it, you know, kind of publicly. So at least, you know,
It is, I agree, it is one of the characteristics of this unit, is a very tree, you know.
Right.
So if there's a lot of cutting down of trees, it's changing the character of the town. So it does seem as if the town should have vested interest in setting some laws in place. And we're not.
yeah, we don't want to turn into Clifton Park this summer, where, you know,
Don't
it's-
ever say that. They're so green there.
yeah.
I'm sorry for that.
So no, I'm just concerned that they're going to take down the trees to build that, you know, for the Mohawk Club to do that. And I worry that number one, it is, I think, wetlands because it's behind my yard. It runs and it's pucky back there all the time. But I also fear that it's just the beginning, that once the development gets their foot in the door, they're gonna find another little place over here that they don't, you know, that they don't need those trees either. And, you know, against it because they were bringing the road out, well, they bought a house to knock down to do it. And then it looks like that's not working. And now they're thinking of running it right next to my house because there was a paper road there. And I've lived in my house for 43 years. And, you know, when I bought it, I was told, well, you might get a golf cart occasionally, but, you know, and I've tended it and there are trees on it and it's wetlands back there and there are deer and, as we said, fox and all that stuff. And now they're going to come in and just knock down a whole bunch of trees and put in a bunch of housing, townhouses and whatever. And I just hate to see that happen. That's part of what we all love about the street is, you know, that everybody gets excited. There's a deer and, you know, they eat my roses, so I can't grow roses anymore. But it's part of what we love about Niskuna is it's a natural kind of beauty.
Exactly.
So I'm concerned that if you can do anything about those trees, that would be nice.
Can you just get your name for the?
It's Marlene Laux at 1191 Ruffner.
LOUX.
Yeah.
What is it?
LOUX as an Xavier.
Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you.
Uh, Are we gonna talk about the?
Yeah, we do have it on our agenda to discuss.
So, I don't know where that stands.
Yeah, I'll give them an update. It's still pretty early for tree council involvement in it. But the tree council's involvement in projects is to limit the number of trees that are removed to the maximum extent possible. That's what they do.
So
Again, what we can what we can do.
Yeah,
If
Okay,
it's not defined as a wetland, then,
right.
you know, our hands are tied, or if a townhouse is going in a certain footprint.
Right.
And there's a tree there,
Right.
then the
Yeah.
trees come down.
Yeah.
But we try to save as many trees as
and
possible.
often, it's long, 100 years ago, I was a real estate agent and we were beginning to develop Edison Woods at that point. And I remember they would put in a house and they wouldn't knock down all the trees. But just the fact of building basements and excavating, the trees around it would just die. The water supply underground had been changed or whatever, and they would just dry up and die. So, you know,
Since you were, used to be a real estate agent?
Pardon me?
Since you used to be a real estate agent?
I did
can
used to
ask
be
you a
one.
question?
Yeah.
The thought I have is, when people come to buy a house in Escudas, what if real estate agents, if we as a tree council gave all the real estate agents pamphlets to talk about how this year is a tree down, we're proud of this. Would that, if you think that would affect the people buying the houses, they would know that they're buying a house in a tree?
I honestly don't know. I was a real estate agent in the 80s and we all know that was a very long time ago, unfortunately. People, I think people who value those things are the ones who are coming here to begin with. You know, you come because you love the neighborhood. And,
But I had the same experience that you used to have, people who begin with trees. It's like, why did you buy a tree, that house here?
Yeah.
But it seems that, so I was wondering if they kind of before buying, they know that this is that might expire its trees, that will affect who buys the house.
I mean, I have huge trees behind me and I've had to have them topped. I have a bunch of fir. And I've had them topped a couple times because they are so tall that I do worry about the wind and the fact that it is, the ground beneath it is mucky. You know, so they help to take up the water for one thing, which is very good. But also there are houses behind me. Back up to, what is it? Country clubs are, I think it's.
Country
No.
club.
Country
club.
Yeah, country club back there. North, it's right or left, I don't know, east or west. But I worry that the wind is getting larger and, you know, and the insurance companies are now charging more for wind insurance, so. I love my trees, as I said, I've had them topped, so I don't have to have them. Unfortunately, then they grow other Christmas trees on the top, but yeah, I think people come because they love it here and.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a tree council, we love to save as many trees as we can whenever there is a development going on, and we are actually a tree city. We apply every year and show what we've been trying to do to value and promote the trees that are in the Niskuna community. It's a tough balance with what we can do. You know, and we can educate to a certain degree, but if somebody moves in and they just want to take down all their trees, you know, somebody just did that next to where I live. They just clear cut.
Probably thank you for your consideration.
Yeah.
Very much so. And I'll echo a lot of Albert and was it Marlene?
Yes.
Marlene's thought. I am a new resident of Niskuna as my name is Stephen Clementi and I live at 1231 Ruffner, which is, and we moved in November of, end of October, early November of 21. And the reason we bought the house was because of the trees in the backyard. And I have two of the oldest trees, as Albert will tell you, on the street. Our house was built in 56. Yeah. And there's two massive silver maples, which probably have a trunk comparable to the older gentleman who just passed away. Yeah. That was a beautiful tree. By the way, I got a picture of a bald eagle in the tree across the street 2 weeks ago, which I'll share with the council. So let me tell you a little bit about who Kathy and I are. We lived for 15 years on the in Schodack on the Rensselaer County, Columbia County border with 8 acres and a pond and 200 acres of woods across us and 26 acres of field across the street. And so we're outdoor people, birds, animals, all of it. I probably spent 750 days, I calculated, in the woods, in the Adirondacks, all over the place. I travel all over the country to be in the woods. And I had a moose in the backyard in May this last year. And I ran out of the house at 7:20 in my bare feet, talking to my sister in South Carolina. I could see it moving through the woodlot, which Mohawk Golf Club wants to develop, which we're very much against. And I turned the video on, and instead of just disconnecting with my sister, that big cow, she was about 1,000 pounds. It's the first moose I've ever seen in my entire life with 750 days in the big woods, the Adirondacks, all over the country. And I didn't get a picture of it, which I really didn't, yeah. But when we moved in, we had a huge maple that was probably estimated about 80, 90 years old that was rotting really bad with a branch going over our adjacent neighbor's house. Unfortunately, Albert, they said, listen, you really need to take that down. And the McCarthy's, it's gonna, and it killed me. It was beautiful. I mean, it had the most beautiful color in the fall, from the first fall that we were here. And so we had to take that down, but very much we bought the house because it buffered all woods behind us on the golf course. Now we're very disheartened, Kathy, my wife and I, to find out that the golf course wants to develop and cut all those trees down, many of them oaks. And the buffer originally was going to be 50 feet. Now it's going to be 30 feet. And it takes hundreds of years to grow trees. I'm not touching the trees in front. You can drive by and take a look at them. They're absolutely massive. And Kathy says, well, they do hang over the road a little bit. I go, yeah, I know, but they've been here for 100 years and I'm not taking them down. They were one of these houses were the first houses in the development, and Marlene will tell you that. So, very much so, it's part of this is why we bought here. And, I said, you see these new developments, they cut everything down. I mean, trees provide shade, they provide beauty. And every once in a while you have to top them or you have to take them down a little bit and prune them up and keep them going. The one thing I would say, I know you guys are the tree council, but from a conservation standpoint, I have videos on my phone. I have coyotes on a regular basis. I saw that three times last week. I had a coyote in the backyard. I've got videos. I've got stills. We have foxes. We have deer. We have turkeys. We got pileated woodpeckers. The only thing I haven't seen here is a bear, but I saw a moose.
I had a bear in my,
You did have a.
I
So-
wasn't thrilled with that one.
So, and I know Laura, we've been at the planning board meetings with Laura in opposition to the golf course developing the woodlot, the 14 or 15 acre woodlot. It's extremely wet. I have standing water in the backyard now. I have standing water at that fence line on a regular basis. But it's a huge sanctuary for wildlife. I've got audio of the coyotes howling at night with my dog sitting on the deck, egging them on, and they're 50 yards away. Okay, lots of coyotes. In the spring, there's a den in there. The pups when I moved in, there's a den in there. When they raise the pups, they call each other when they get a rabbit. There's a million rabbits back there. I mean, it's like wildlife central. And the reason it is because of the trees and the cover. And that's animals look for cover. That's what they do. And as Albert says, they use that heavily wooded area between Hedgewood and Ruffner to traverse, and they cut right across the street at Charlie and Joanna's house, and which is right next to us, as well as at Marlene's house. And they work that wooded line because that's protection and safety for them. So the trees are a core component to the ecosystem. They're everywhere in the world, not just Niskayuna.
Yeah.
So it's extremely critical that be treated with extreme care if the golf course is allowed to develop. We don't want the development. There's all kinds of water issues. We don't know what the sewer capacity is going to be or what the water capacity is going to be for us. So I'm concerned about the trees, about a buffer of trees behind the house. That's why we bought the house. And I think it's extremely important for the town to maintain that as part of the comprehensive plan.
It's the Conservation Advisory Council. They obviously are involved with
Yeah,
this also.
Yeah. they did a pretty thorough review on February 1st. But it will come back to them. I think it'll be
There's a
back.
Conservation Advisory Council in addition to us, we're trees. But maybe you could explain to
Yeah,
them.
the CAC has, the tree council kind of has to work within the guidelines that they're given. So if the planning board says here's gonna be the subdivision, then the tree council will do its best, like, to literally save every single tree that they can save. That's what they do. And pretty much every time they do a site walk, it's like -20 and they're still out there. They work really, really hard to save all the trees that they can, but they have to work within the context of what the planning board gives them. The CIC does have some additional review powers. They also take into consideration the forests and the wildlife, and their next meeting is on April 3rd. They have to review the environmental impact
So we
statement.
should go there as well.
Yeah, I think tree council is, I think, more outreach and saving of the trees, but doesn't have a lot of ability to kind of affect the development as much as some of the other boards.
Right, we're told that this is happening, we go and try to save as many trees as we can. But there is also, I wanted to just bring up the Conservation
Conservation.
Advisory Council that has a little bit more
Mhm.
overall on wildlife, et cetera, than we do. And it, has more of an input into the town planning board than we do. So, because obviously we want to save trees. I mean, that's
You're
our
tree huggers too.
and we love the character of this unit.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're doing all we can under the restrictions we have.
Muscatine is a charming town. It has a convenience of the city. You know, it's Albany, Schenectady. It's all close by, but also the beauty of the nature. We have to conserve it. You have to walk on it. Otherwise, it's because I can go to
Right. Like you said, once it's gone. once the
Yeah,
trees are
once it's
down.
gone, it's gone, right? Yeah. So, hopefully you guys.
Thank you.
We'll do
for-
what we can.
Well, Becky, is that you who joined by phone? If you joined by phone and you're just listening, that's fine. If you wanted to say anything, you have to press *6 sometimes.
I do want your name again. Yes.
Oh, my name is Kayoko, Kayyoko. Last name is Meyer, Meyer.
What is your property address?
Said 1166, Laffner.
You guys are always welcome to take pictures of any of the trees that you see there and send them to us. Documenting them does help.
Yeah, we'll send them over. It's a pretty, we have massive trees. And I just believe that you guys are gonna really have if this development gets approved by either planning board or the town board to go in, you're gonna have your work cut out for you, because you're gonna put 22 units in on 15 acres, and he says he's gonna preserve trees, but you know how that works when it's in a experience that, so. A lot of oaks in there. I've walked in it.
I lost a lot of trees.
The wet areas have, which is a lot of it. They have more more softwoods, more cottonwood things, softer wood trees, but where there's good ground, there's oaks.
Well, let's talk about this, but is there a reason the helper was increased, the original to?
Yeah, it has to do with the average density requirements. Essentially, they were presenting a plan that didn't fully meet that. So, voice that he did back such a few concerns. In the next. Yes, we definitely want to hear this. Thanks. Even especially the people one.
Yes.
Oh, I got it right here, you see?
Well, sure.
I sent you the video.
Thank
I sent you the videos.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have her cell phone number, but obviously the pictures go in better on cell phone than they do sometimes on the lines, right? So I'll send you an email.
Okay,
I got tons of pictures. It's a real menagerie out there.
yeah, because we really haven't had a chance to do a walkthrough, so pictures are always helpful.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll send you the eagle. Shoshana actually took the picture.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so from the eagle, I got tons of foxes and tons of coyotes and native woodpeckers that have beaten up my shed and all kinds of stuff. So, thank you.
I just put the I mean, I think you guys kind of know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
A
But
little bit.
because we talked about this before, this is the forest right here that they're talking about, which we really haven't done the site walkthrough yet, but this is the forest that they're looking at and that
The plan is to take that all down.
I mean, a lot of it. There's the benefit of an average density development, which it's not the second thing in our packet, but yeah, I'll just share my screen. Yeah, the benefit of the average density development is actually the lots are smaller, so it clusters the homes together, and then they have to leave a buffer of trees around. So there's some ways benefits to the average density development.
Laura, do we have a member of the public?
I did, I mean, I think it's, I called on her. I think it's, yeah.
I just want to make sure when we're discussing that, we
Yeah.
know.
If the person whose phone number ends in 1-2 would like to speak, would you like to speak? I can't unmute them. They have to press *6, but she actually wasn't muted when I first asked. So I think it's okay. If for some reason there's a comment that you're missing, I can follow up and then I'll send it to you guys. So let me just put this. I'm just gonna share my. Sometimes it's a little dangerous for me to share my whole screen. Let me do that so that we can bounce back and forth. So this is the plan that has changed since the last time that you guys saw it. Oops. Lag with that screen in my computer. Okay. So I know some of you guys who don't look at the site plans haven't looked at site plans too much yet. You'll get used to them. But this is the triangle of the forest that I just showed you. Do you remember how that sort of looked like a triangle on aerial? And these dotted lines here are the limits of clearing.
It's Ruffner in the bottom.
Ruffner is right here.
Okay.
I think the first person that was talking, he lives kind of over here. The second lady that was talking is one of these.
The left side.
Left side, yeah. And then the couple other ones I think are a little bit farther down
Other
there.
gentleman was here.
Here, okay. The hatched mark is the proposed forest to remain. To Carol's point, like we do try and go in there and get them to save as many trees as you can, but with the lots this close, it's very unlikely that we would be able to flag trees that they would keep here. And all of these trees are being removed because they're building stormwater retention ponds. So this little triangle here would stay forest, and then a little bit of a buffer between the homes, but it's not a lot of forest that's left.
And there's no place else they can put the stormwater and protect that forest.
We can ask. The reason that we really haven't done a site walk yet is because this plan keeps changing. The planning board keeps trying to mitigate the, impacts to the neighborhood. And this one is a little bit different than the one that you saw the last time. If you remember in the minutes, what we had said is, I don't know that it's the time is right now to like do a site plan and really look at where the limits of clearing are going, because they can still change a lot. But if you are walking around and you just want to peek and get a sense of what the forest kind of is, that may be helpful for them to send us pictures too. Just to get a sense of, when I tried to schedule a walkthrough, like there's a fence that goes all along Ruffner, so you can't really get to the forest from Ruffner. So we would have to meet at the golf club, and they would have to take us in golf carts out to the forest. Right about that time is when we got the snowstorm. So we haven't been able, although it did get really warm for a little bit, and then I was thinking about scheduling another thing, but
Looking at the satellite, there's no other place for them to do it. Like the triangle of the woods backs up right along fairways. So,
for the stormwater pond.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. Unless you were to push them in.
Didn't they make it local water?
Creative. We're not golfers.
Yes.
I know.
Just throwing it out there.
I mean, we can ask. means
I know that.
to save some trees, they could look at trying to incorporate the ponds into the golf course.
I thought that the entrance road was gonna take up an existing full property.
So that's the big change from the last time that you guys saw it.
This was the land
That was where
that,
the road
and
was
they were
gonna
gonna take this house out. But taking down the house changes the character of the neighborhood.
be. Oh, sorry. Although something I did want to show you is that.
Oops.
Okay.
Okay, why don't we finish with Linda?
Oh,
Let
sorry.
me just understand it.
Down here,
It's coming.
Yeah.
It lags.
down there was a wide space between two houses.
Yeah.
No divots, no, nothing to know, just continuation and a wide space between the two houses. It actually is a paper street on maps. So
That's
they're
what
gonna
that one lady
utilize the
was
paper
talking
street.
about. Yeah, that still lives next to that.
Why is there still another thing?
Emergency access. But it's actually probably just in terms of access, more trees coming down with this one. And that's what I was gonna show you in here. As the road is right here, and because the road hasn't been built on in a long time,
Where is it?
you need to.
I'm not sure.
It's right here. I don't know. My computer is very laggy today, but these little dark spots are all trees. So like this is, and they're trees because they don't belong to anyone. So these guys don't really mow it or anything. So it's grown up as a forest, even though it's a paper street. But the paper street would go right through here and then tuck around here and go into the forest that way. So I haven't been out there to evaluate these trees yet. This is a different section of trees that they're talking about removing now. Which you'd be able to see right from the road. Like if you stand on Ruffner Road, between 1219 and 1191, there's a line of trees here that we should look at, which we can just look at any time.
And you're saying that it would take more trees down there than the original one, which was a little further up.
Probably, yeah.
And this is where they were gonna talk the emergency access.
No, emergency access is up here. Right here. Such a lag. Let's make it up. A second now. There it goes. So this is where the other road was. The reason I say I think it's slightly less is because before, in the one I just showed you down there, that's a line of trees.
Yeah.
This is actually a shared driveway. Did you guys see that before it pixelated? So there's less trees being taken down here, but a house being taken down is obviously an issue. So, but this is a shorter distance to the trees. Yeah.
Don't know, we just driveway.
Correct. Well, except it would also took the house down. Yeah,
Why did they have to take the house down?
because of the size of the right of way in the street.
So they bought the house and then they.
We're proposing to take it down. Yeah,
The history was that was a glorified easement / driveway
to a water tank.
to a water tank, not wide enough to be a street.
Mm-hmm.
When you widen it to be a street, it's too close to the houses. So
And
the
also
house has to
grading
be-
wise and stuff, yeah.
Could they plant trees and take the house down and lots of trees there?
They could. That's always a recommendation that I think you guys do. That's one thing, we still haven't really dived into the plan because it keeps changing, but there's really no, indication of replanting anywhere. So that's something that at some point they're gonna have to start coming up with, tree planting plans. But I basically put on the agenda just as the plans have changed a little bit. Still, did anybody get a chance to go out and look at the trees from kind of far away?
Got it from Country Club,
Did you?
kind of from that direction. And
Yeah.
you can see off in the distance that there are some really nice big trees.
Big trees.
Yeah, I looked at it when I was driving up Rockford.
I've driven
Series of them.
like slowly, but
Yeah.
I feel like I have to pay attention to the road, so I haven't really analyzed it either.
Well, even in the development, can they keep some trees or is it all just?
And
so close together that
it's timely enough right now that I think we could ask to see if they can do that. Ask the planning board to look and see if they can design this so that you can leave little clumps of trees within that development.
It's too bad is that
The woman-
buffer is so narrow that as far as
It's
the wildlife
narrow.
or something that's gonna be in that.
You could shift the whole thing. a little bit
Like a
further
brook,
back
to keep some square.
so
Yeah,
that buffer is maintained.
I'm not at all familiar with that golf course. I know. But I'm inferring, since they want to cut down all these trees to do this, that they can actually build any part of existing lawn.
they're zoned R1. So the whole golf course is zoned to be allowed to subdivide into single family homes.
Yeah, well, I mean, the golf course, owners of the golf course don't want to give up the golf course. I'm
They
wondering
don't.
If there's can they build on part of the existing golf course without detracting too much from the golf course? That won't, if it's, it's just grass, but it isn't that part of the fairway.
I told
I mean, like, legally, through the town they could, but every time they come to the planning board meeting, they talk about how this golf course has been established since 1892, I think, and how they do not want to mess with the holes. They don't.
I wouldn't be missing. I was wondering, I imagine a golf course, there's fairways and greens, and there's others just grass area. This isn't really
Right,
played on.
right.
That would be
I think they need a storm retention hole on the golf course.
Yeah, put the storm water and save the trees. Well, I put that.
You know, they have those. Areas or whatever.
Yeah.
It could be like a drop or whatever.
We'll save some trees by incorporating ponds into golf course. And they were
One of the features on this is that when other developments went in, the trees that were left
that's what I'm writing.
were too close to where the tractors were riding and
Yeah.
the roots were ruined, they died anyway. So with the houses as close as proposed, I think it's gonna be there.
But I think you could do a recommendation, just consider home configurations that save some trees between. Especially if there's some real big ones.
Yeah.
And another thing which we've done, I think especially on Van Antwerp, where we noticed that there were very big oak trees and we really wanted to have them site the home around those trees, is just ask them now to start putting trees that are bigger than 15 inches in diameter, I think. I can't remember what we did on the, does anybody remember? We're getting shy on people. I can look.
Be something you're comfortable in saying. I haven't kept track of all the various subdivision proposals that have come before the planning commission and the town board and those kinds of things, but I mean, is this, are they gonna be basically considering about how to, the details of it, it's going forward, but they'll influence like exactly what it looks like, or is this really something that is, has a chance of being turned away, rejected?
So it's the reason that we're not diving as much into the details as we normally do is it's still very early on in the process. Planning board still hasn't even said yes to a sketch plan. And I would say at the last meeting, they were calling for a public hearing on a proposal that they kind of publicly stated that they, didn't, there was a lot of things that they had issues on with it. They haven't really seen this new one. So I like to keep our comments general because I don't really know where it's going, but I do think that if it is going, it's good to incorporate some of these things in early, but I don't want us to spend too much time on it in case it.
Yeah, but we should probably all drive by and become
I think
familiar
we
with
should
it.
drive
Okay.
by and become familiar.
The developer has a past record of not following guidelines. Those are that deep like having a future development. That fast.
From my knowledge, I guess that'd be kind of an attorney question. To my knowledge, like what the direction I'm normally given is that almost regardless. I mean, you gotta watch them and you watch them more if they've had a history of, disregarding rules, but they
Just
still
seems
have a right to
it just
take
seems that they-
application.
Violated the agreement before. Why
Before.
expect them
They
to
did.
agree? Well, I don't know. I have heard I'm asking a general question, but I have also, I'm not sure it's true, that that there was some issues with this developer of cutting down more trees than they were allowed to cut down?
It's just the owner of the golf course, and to my knowledge, he's not developed before.
Okay.
He's a new developer.
Okay.
I've never worked with him before.
Jim, what is the street that's perpendicular, just to go find it?
Oh, Mountain View, this one right here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably a real good kind of indicator to go for, is the corner of Ruffner and Mountain View, because that's where the forest really starts to get big. Yeah, but it is hard to, I mean, it's a little bit hard because you're looking past people's homes and into the forest, and you went over to Country Club to see it, but you're a little bit removed from it. So eventually we have to do a site walk, but you know, if the weather isn't super great yet, and it's still an
Early.
evolving project,
Okay.
but general comments I think are good. Like, I don't know that anybody's discussed potentially moving the ponds as incorporating them as a feature or something.
Can you move up on the map?
Sure.
I want to see, look north there. If you go to the end of Row, you can get a view from the end of Row.
Oh, probably. I mean, I think it's still just about as far away as Country Club, but yeah, you could stand on the end of this stub and look through here too.
And what was it?
ROWE, Row's just around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't,
I'm saying,
oh,
Row, just.
Yeah,
Row,
yeah,
just start
yeah.
over like that.
Not bad. The interesting thing about looking at the forest from Rao is this little piece of forest is the one forest that's the big piece of forest that's proposed to be saved. This side over here is the side towards Rao. So if this is like the little golf, you'd be standing over here if you were looking at it from Rao.
See this stuff, blood.
But all of this is, I mean, really, these are the limits of clearing that are proposed right now. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the bigger limits of clearing that the tree council's seen in a long time. 10 acres of, clearing.
You're saying this proposal is tree areas that the tree council said.
In a long time,
Really?
yeah. 10 acres is a lot.
since Harmon Grove.
Yeah, it was probably since Harmon Grove, but Harmon Grove kept a lot of the forest on the inside because of the wetlands. So even Harmon Grove wasn't necessarily the 10-acre clear cut.
They did a donut.
Yeah, they did a donut.
Okay, so do you need anything more from us with that right now?
No, but I think I'm gonna go look and see what size tree we asked them to put on the subdivision for Van Antwerp so that we can be consistent.
Our trees are of significance, we
Trees of
decided we're 10
significance.
inches,
10 inches. Well, then we should go with our tree of significance definitions.
don't you think?
We're working on it slowly. I have looked into ordinances because actually when I was looking up definitions of tree of significance, that's where I ran into some ordinances. A lot of them were like from California, which it's harder to apply to us because West Coast law evolved and then property law evolved very differently than the East Coast. But I did find some in Long Island. So
Because if they take down every tree that's greater than 10 inches, they have to compensate, that's gonna be,
a lot of trees.
that's gonna be hundreds, thousands, right? In an acre plot that they're taking down.
Yeah, but we have to see, our code really doesn't have a lot of teeth. Like when we're looking at our pre-master plan and we're looking at our comprehensive plan, it's a good time to maybe look at some of these other stricter codes and see if we can make our code stricter. Because I think even in our code, within the envelope of the building, they don't have to mitigate those.
Okay,
I think it's when it's on the edge and we say, this is close enough to the edge that you have to save it. And then it comes down, they have to mitigate it. So we adopted a code that was at the forefront of protecting trees in 1970.
yeah, that's a lot.
And it
72,
really hasn't been changed since then.
Okay,
So maybe it was a little bit later than that. We'd have to look.
The original
Nin-
town code came in 72.
Yeah.
I don't know if the tree council was, the tree code was put in.
It really hasn't been changed. It was adopted as the model for being a tree city is where our code came from. So when we were initially designated as a tree city, we had to adopt a tree code that protected trees, and that was the model tree code that we adopted. And we really haven't modified it too much since then. It's this, my computer's super slow today.
Well, shall we move on to the Trinity Baptist?
Yeah, Trinity Baptist is an update.
Move back.
Yeah, sorry, we're popping around the
Yeah.
agenda a little bit, but I think that was good discussion.
Yeah.
Trinity Baptist, you guys have looked at a lot. You did a bunch of site walks. Both, you were there too, right?
I was there.
John and, yeah. So I think they're finally in a place where they're ready to go. Planning board's looking at it. This is their notes. They have 3 large oaks in the vicinity of the pavilion and 7 to 8 large white pine trees noted within the limits of clearing will be retained, which are the big white pines that we saw when we were walking around. They put in notes to make sure that during construction, they're going to slag the edges of the trees so that they don't pack the soil around the trees. You can zoom in on those. And then the other thing, which we had asked them to do, is
Some out by the road.
so they have this, their planting plan is kind of general, but that's okay because they really would like to work with us when they actually go to plant. And it's a line of trees from Balltown Road along the property line with the adjacent southern neighbor would be planted to offset the clearing. So I think that captures everything that we did on our site plan. It's been a long time, but I was looking through our agenda statement. And the only thing that came up at the Conservation Advisory Council, which the applicant did agree to do, is plant even more trees. So when we get to the point of planting, my new planting subcommittee members and I will probably go out and look at the site and see what the soils look like and then offer different types of trees to them. 1992. Okay, so it was later than I thought, but we adopted it in 1992
And when you ask that, you can send it out to the whole committee, because if other people are available, like, John and I and Amanda have gone at other times.
to go out and
Yeah.
so what we're gonna do is we'll take a
So
look
it's
at
just not you two.
I won't abandon you though. Is that we'll do the line, we can do the line with them, and the thing that the Conservation Advisory Council wanted them to look at was maybe a cluster, like kind of like a grove of trees. Not to like, because the church didn't want to plant a line of trees along Balltown Road. It's important for them to have the visibility of their church to the cars. But this tree council said, do you think you could do like a clump so it doesn't interfere with your visibility, but you have a nice little grove of trees? And they said, yeah. So when we're out there, we can look at that too.
And the line between, on the southern, they could plant a whole row. of
They want to
trees.
plant a whole
Yeah.
row there. They actually tried to plant a row there once before and they all died. So I think it's probably wet. My guess is that we're gonna need to suggest wet species to them, but we can go out and check it later.
So that's the Trinity Baptist Church. What about Rivers Ledge?
Rivers Ledge, is mostly just pay attention. It's coming. You guys did a lot of work on part 1, which is already built mostly. I know Amy and I did a bunch of drive-abouts to make sure that they were planting most of the trees that we requested. I probably have to do one more drive-about on them, but they can't do underground parking anymore, so they're doing these guys right here. A giant screen. All of these little black blobs that are going around the building are covered parking, which was not part of the site plan. And planning board's already asking for screening. So we don't have it yet, but if you're driving up and down Aqueduct Road past the new Rivers Ledge, be looking. We're gonna need to be paying attention to how we screen these to the bike
Where's
path.
the river from there?
The river's up here.
Okay.
Aqueduct Road is right here.
So will the headlights again be an issue with this parking across the river?
No, because these are solid.
Okay.
Yeah, they're gonna be solid garages that they pull into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Might be stuff for a screen.
Screen. So here's the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail.
Oh, from the bike trail.
Yeah.
Okay.
And before, in the plan before that you guys looked at, there were no garages.
Right.
So we're gonna see if we can get them. This is, I don't know if you remember, it wasn't that long ago that we looked at the planting plan for the recreation building.
Yeah.
It was also super close to the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail. So we had them put a lot of evergreens. probably we're gonna want him to do something similar there. So we'll push for evergreens and then we'll see what we can get down there. Is upcoming.
Where was it where there was the headlight issue across the
River's
river?
Edge, yeah.
Okay, but I mean, where,
Oh, not on this plan.
Up here,
okay, got
Yeah.
all the apartment buildings are
We're
up here.
Okay,
So it's these flowing into the
okay.
across the
Which-
river.
Tree council went back out and then figured out where they could plant more trees where the cars were facing over Alpha's. And then they planted, and they really have planted most of them. I've been out there, they actually planted more than we even asked.
How does the walkway, the pathway look?
So the pathways got, I would say 80% of the trees that we requested, and they seem to be doing okay. But doesn't have any of the understory plantings yet. So, I think that's partly because they're struggling with soil erosion. If you guys walk down
Yeah.
that trail, you'll notice there's actually quite a bit of water that's coming off the river's edge and it's like eroding where they're supposed to be planting the bushes and the hydrangea bushes and stuff like that. So they still have to fix the erosion before they plant all of the. Remember, we had to change the species because they're all.
Yeah.
Because of now super sunny, because they took down more trees than they're supposed to take down.
Have they done the, used the stone from the aqueducts
They have.
and incorporated that?
That part is very cool.
Okay.
Yeah. The erosion, they're struggling with, and I think they gotta get that under control before they do their small plants. So they still have probably like, I'm gonna say like 500 perennials and bushes and stuff to plant that they haven't planted yet. But the majority of the trees are in, if you walk up and down. Our former tree council person really wanted it to be like almost an arboretum.
Yeah.
And she selected a lot of really unique trees that they have planted down there, so.
Did they have mitigating plans to control the erosion and the,
Yeah.
you know, in the original
Yeah.
design of the whole thing? I mean, wasn't that?
But when
Yeah.
I've walked down, it was not working.
So you'll see this sometimes when you run into contractors, not always big fans of engineers because that design, it's not working. Somebody's gonna have to go out there and be like, this is what's really happening and now we redesign it. I think there's, just my guess, I'm not an engineer, more water coming out of the cliff face than they thought there would be.
Right.
I actually don't know that it's necessarily runoff from the subdivision. I think there's actually more water that actually just comes out of the water table that they didn't account for. So. Like, there's a lot. Well, it's interesting too, because where they made this park, so if you go down to Aqueduct Park where the rowing club is, there used to be a whole line of cottonwoods there. They weren't supposed to take the majority of the cottonwoods down. They did take a lot of them down. Because they did that, we made them mitigate with an additional planting plan.
It's just a long bit.
But yeah, it's right along the river and,
You started the rowing club.
you just keep going.
River.
But it's actually on the bed of the old Erie Canal. So it's an interesting place for them to be growing because it was the Erie Canal that had water, then they filled it all in, and then there were cottonwoods growing along the side of it. They took most of the cottonwoods down. Now they've put bike paths and replanted a lot of really unique trees, and then they used the old aqueduct stones to like kind of follow the patterns. Like
Yeah.
I'm the only one in the world who likes cottonwoods as much as.
Just that they took down trees that we told them not to take down is always. Thursday.
They were mean.
And
This.
Very
so, okay, so that's that one. 390 State Street, jumping down to that one.
So this one, I think it's really interesting that he mentioned the bald eagle, because I think I said at the last tree council meeting that while I was down on State Street, Route 5, I was standing next to this giant Norway spruce and a bald eagle flew over my head. And I was thinking to myself, that's a really unusual place for a bald eagle to be. But then one of the neighbors came in and was talking at the planning board and said that in that Norway spruce, there's regularly birds of prey nesting. And I was thinking maybe it wasn't as unusual as I thought. I mean, it's probably the tallest tree in the area. The eagle may have actually been going to land on it, and then there were people milling around. He just kept flying. But
We think his tree is right
yeah,
here.
that's his
Okay,
tree.
so we're saving that.
Yes, we
Okay.
strongly said to the planning board last time that we wanted to save it. The developer has told that to the developer. This new plan still does not save it. So we can reiterate that we want it to be saved. But this new plan does have a lot more tree planting. So,
But we want to save that in the
I
way.
really think that we should just be pushing to save that Norway. It's, if you drive down it, I think I showed it to you on Google Earth. It's way taller than any of the trees around it. It's probably like 30 feet at the base. And we have evidence of, birds of prey.
Seems that you're spending more money to cut that down and plant other ones. right?
Yes.
Just leave that one up.
Just leave it. That's what I think.
They might have to lose a couple parking spaces.
Yeah, it's right here.
Right where?
It's right here. Can you guys see my cursor?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you point? This is like the tip top of it, and that's like it's, so but if you did a bump out here, you'd probably have to lose like 6 parking spaces. I know that is not something that they love to hear, but
Sort of a question, but how reliably if a tree is in danger. I mean, we had to, I've been thinking to trees.
have you?
Both were leaning precipitously and so forth, and both were a lot worse than
He's not.
that's once they would take. I guess I wonder through all this, it is that obvious concern.
It's true.
But I'm curious, with what confidence can you say, oh, it's not going to fall over?
That's a tree. And with
Yeah.
the exception of like Amy, who used to be on the tree council, who was like a trained
Chris.
and Chris, who are like trained arborists, they're not like experts at evaluating tree health.
I mean, you can see obvious stuff, but that's about it.
Mhm.
But Chris asked that question, I remember, and you said, we haven't held accountable. We give
It's
them
true. Best guess.
our best guess.
What you'll find, which I was speaking, I can't remember who I was talking to about it before, is that you can hire arborists to evaluate your trees, but because they really are held accountable with their evaluation of trees, they tend to be very conservative.
So they make their money as you think we should.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes it depends on if they work for the tree removal company or if you're just hiring a separate arborist, but agreed. Sometimes it's in their best interest to say that the tree needs to be come down. Sometimes even if they're trying to be the best arborist in the world to keep the trees, if they see something, but they can't really tell, if they say that tree's perfectly fine and then the next day it falls on the house and hurts someone, it's, so they have to be really sure to say that tree's fine, you don't need to mess with it. It's a high, because they're held accountable for the other way, it's a high burden for them to say, that tree's fine, don't touch it. It's a very high bar for
Well, and
anybody.
sometimes
actually
we get
saying.
asked because somebody just wants their tree down, because they,
But this is what we struggle with.
they just don't want it, and so they say, oh, it's, and you look at it because, we want it taken down, and that's, I think,
The majority of trees that we see, we generally recommend they're fine. Sometimes we get one that's pretty obviously dead. As long as they have a decent amount of canopy, we recommend that they stay. Because, the highway department will support us, like, the town is not in the business of taking down
Well,
one
and
big
usually
tree.
they ask us because they
They
have
think it
a
looks
question of- yeah, they
healthy.
think it's- Yeah,
Since Amy and Chris are no longer on this council.
Yeah.
Ask them to give us kind of basic training so that we can, what do we look
We
for?
should see me that one. We
Yeah.
probably could. Mhm.
Yes, if we all just had a, basically, what are the things,
That
the
It would have to be a
indicators?
summer lesson.
Sorry?
It would have to
Yeah,
be summer
summer.
Yeah.
lesson in the summer.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, she's busy in the winter.
Well, and one of the things, one of the things we're gonna try to do at Arbor Day is see if people are interested in joining. So a little, talk about what or something and say interested in becoming a member.
Mhm.
Um,
We almost got somebody last Arbor Day.
So. Okay, so.
I really do it.
Terrible.
Okay.
It's not enough generations of soil, but-
Parking vans going down the side, it's sort of a clue.
Trees can survive a lot though, and rot inside a tree is not necessarily indicative of it really being in decline.
Though I've seen on the news about those two Niskuna couples, that the tree came down their house and they're living in a hotel.
So listen, that did not do our tree community any good. Because that is an unusual one. I have been working in and around a building department for 15 years. And I've never seen a tree do that kind of damage to a roof. It went right through it. That's highly unusual. Normally the roofs pretty much stop it. Nobody was injured, but it was a bad one. I looked at it, I think it was partly because the tree was very tall and far away from the house, and it didn't have a lot of lower branches. So there wasn't anything to kind of stop it from falling in because it was so far away. By the time that it really hit something, it was going really fast.
What's the address of that, just out of curiosity?
19 something.
It's way up at the top of Dean.
Oh, it's up at the top of
Yeah.
Dean.
It's not that far away from where we planted all the trees on Dean. No. No, this is a huge oak.
I thought it was an elm.
Oh, was it?
On the news, it said elm.
Did it?
I didn't, yeah.
No.
The woman is in the
Really?
book club I'm in, so.
Maybe it doesn't have leaves, and I was just looking at the bark. It's possible, but that would be a very large elm tree.
So,
I was just looking at it, my cousin inspector's pictures. But I've noticed since those trees came down, like a plethora of tree crews in other people's yards taking trees down. I even saw it on Balltown Road this morning. Like 4 giant, beautiful white pines, no problems whatsoever, been there forever. And I think I didn't have the heart to look on my way home, but they're probably gone. And a lot of times when a tree comes down and does damage, just
The storm 2011. Last 5 years of storm and all.
Just everybody's like, oh, I don't want that to happen in my yard, and you lose a bunch of trees. Yeah. Shows if you want later.
okay, yeah, can you send them?
I just have them on my phone. So for State Street, do we want to just strongly recommend the Norway spruce stay again, and that can be
And do we need to look at what they've proposed?
if we really want to strongly recommend the Norway spruce stay, they still have to do readjust the site. plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the trees behind the Norway spruce?
Norway maples.
Not
The guy was trying to save the Norway maple and take down the Norway spruce, and I was like, other way around. The Norway maples can be invasive.
Okay, so then Pasanelli,
Pulcinelli and 1760 Union Street, I
Yeah.
just kept on in case anybody had any updates. For me, otherwise the plans haven't changed at all.
That's the same developer with Chenza, right?
That's probably the developer that you were thinking about.
Yeah.
It's actually not, but they're like cousins. Yeah,
So, and then, so there was an issue with Chenza.
correct. Yes, there was multiple times. Yeah, still an issue. So we just had an issue with Southport back there a couple days ago.
So once I asked you about that, like a year or two ago, and you said that generally the developer would keep an escrow.
Which he did, actually. We have like $6,000, I think, to do street tree plantings in that area.
You use that separately. Chenza.
We can't use that escrow money to do private plantings. And the reason for that is the town has no control over the trees once they go back in the public property. So when the town escrows, the town's holding money for the public benefit of the trees, and they have to be planted in the right of ways or town-owned property. You can, during subdivision, require planting like screens and things along inside private property. But once the subdivision closes, and most of the time they won't do this, but once the subdivision closes, then the private property is under the regular laws, and they could go and take that whole buffer out if they wanted to. That's the hard thing about private property.
Now, is the developer in Chenza was at the same time?
That is the same one assumption.
He kept saying, each house he kept saying was for his daughter. Right?
3.
Chenza now has a for sale sign.
The one on Hilltop, Van Antwerp is for sale. Yes, yeah.
So this is-
The daughter's actually moving into one of the homes that was built behind me. Yeah.
We don't need to do anything on the kelp farm.
No, he's not to the point where he'll start executing his planting plan. He's probably at least 2 years away from that, would be my guess.
Kelp farm,
That's fine.
but they're putting the houses up. That's the one right across from Blattman.
He's putting one house up. There's,
No, there's other,
there's
there's
a
another one.
building permit going on there?
Yeah.
Oh, does he have?
Yeah, the duplex
Oh, well, yes.
is mostly built.
The
The
duplex
single
and the single
family
family
is
home.
almost done.
Yes.
And then I think he has another couple,
Building
another
permits in.
duplex.
I would be surprised though, if
But he hasn't even started them, so I gotta yell at him for renewing.
so that's what I mean. I think the climate for building has gotten tough for Celts, but we'll see.
Oh,
Sometimes, like, do you guys remember Napa? We're trying not to go back. So when he's done with these 2 lots, we should make sure that he plants the trees in front of these 2
Right.
lots. Rather than if it
Wait.
takes you 10 years to build out on these subdivisions, then we go back and try and get people to plant trees. And then I get that is a place that I'm violating the Constitution of the United States.
But the temp CO says the trees are gonna be
Yeah, we
planted.
changed our temp CO to help with that
great.
too. Yeah. Mhm.
that's
So
great.
that should help. But aside from a couple trees being planted when the homes are completed, I think the full planting plan on that's still gonna be a while.
There might be 2 planted on the lot so that the house can move to final CO. But the majority of trees won't go in until more of the lots are developed.
And we still want to.
There is a row of conifers.
I think, $6,000 or $8,000 to do plantings along that bike path too. But we don't really want to do those until he's done, because they're mess makers, so we want to make sure that it's done, and then we'll do all the plantings.
Yeah, that was gonna be our pollinator pathway,
Mhm,
but then
our
we worried about maintenance, with the highway department. Once we plan it, it takes care of it. We never really figured that out.
But we do have the script for when we do figure it out.
Okay. Okay, so shall we move on?
Yeah,
We have the reports, but there's just a little bit of new business.
Mhm.
One is, I did talk to Nick from the Schenectady Soil and Water Conservation District about watering. And he had 2 suggestions. One was what they do, the dye for their mulch comes in these big plastic 300-gallon tubs. And they converted it into a watering tank that they use on the back of their vehicles, and he said he could get one for Niskuna. The other thing he said is he could maybe help out, because they are Schenectady County, for when it's really dry, and, depending on how much how many trees we needed watering in. So I wanted to bring that up, Laura, and see if the highway department on either of those would be amenable to, do
so
that.
I can reach out to Ray. I know you're kind of busy, but would you be willing to meet with him with me? I feel like he'd be more receptive if he heard
Sure.
it from you.
Sure,
Yeah, okay.
okay.
So what I'll do is set up a meeting about that with him.
And do you want to talk about, about the highway department?
Yeah, so I have been working actually more on trying to build a relationship with the highway department and this committee than the master plan over the last month. And the supervisor has been really supportive of trying to have the highway department play a stronger role. We do a really good job, I think, on planning projects and trying to mitigate the tree loss as much as we can with planning projects, but I feel like we still struggle with getting the day-to-day trees planted. And one of the ideas that we've been throwing about, which we still have to figure out if it could possibly work, is alternating who comes from the town to our meetings. So like potentially you can have one planning meeting and then you can have a highway meeting where you worked with him on, or her, but it's likely him, on plantings.
And he
And-
couldn't come in addition to you.
We haven't talked about that, but you did ask me, so that's gonna be something that I'm gonna ask her. I'm fine with it being an addition, but maybe you can build a stronger rapport with me not here, I'm sorry, personality. So.
My concern is still going forward with all these projects. I'm not sure
Oh, with the
I would-
planning projects, yes.
Would
It's
know how
true.
to do that on a basis.
Here or there, yeah. Or Carol and I were saying we could do planning highway or something like that, so, because planning projects potentially take up more time, but at least you could have a regular meeting, even if it's like quarterly, you know, meeting with highway, where they would be your person, you would be talking to them about, you know, trees of significance, like maintenance, like how we've gotta really start working with them on not weed blasting the trees. We spend all these monies on these trees, we try and keep them beautiful in the public, and if you go out there, like, we're losing them because we're girdling them all because of weed whacking them. Doesn't matter how many times I say that to them, like, I think they need to sit here and really be involved in the tree council in order to have buy-in and stop doing that. So,
Or just have an extra meeting every once in a while.
or have an extra meeting
You
every
know,
month.
and-
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, because potentially, you know, we did get Outlaws residents for River Road, come and do the public privilege of the floor. That led to us doing a lot more plantings at Riverside. And we do have the Mohawk Golf Club. You know, when there's a lot of projects going on, I think it'd be hard to skip a tree council meeting for planning.
right.
But, you know, like, if it's quiet, then sometimes we do skip tree council meetings, and then,
Maybe we won't need to keep meetings with the highway department. We just need to get 2 meetings to get
well,
connect the relationship,
I
get
think
started.
we want a regular
Yeah,
highway.
I'd say like every few months, we maybe have an extra meeting or something, or,
Certain times of the year, we see highway.
Yeah,
yeah, and you had also mentioned about getting somebody in the spring and fall.
so what they're trying to do, because they had, a person who was kind of like the liaison between us, and I think that planting went probably a lot better a couple years ago when we had a particular person that was assigned to the tree council. Although they didn't come to the meetings, we did convince them to stop buying red maples, which is like the only thing that they ever bought. And yeah, and then he would take into our considerations, he'd always do the Arbor Day planting. He retired, and so then there was just kind of a void, and I think with COVID and everything else that was happening, we got very behind on the tree planting. So, but what they're talking about is potentially hiring back the contractor for the highway department, him, and he would come back and he would just be in charge during spring and fall of doing those plantings. So that's really exciting too. I mean, it seems sometimes that we struggle a lot, but they are trying to spend money and get it done. I think it's just a balance of, there's so much also that they're doing, and it's not like they don't have an arborist who's like telling them, to your point, that tree's unhealthy, take it down, this one's beautiful, keep it, let's plant a lion along here. They have us. But
we don't really ever
interact with,
yeah,
true.
so. Okay, and then the one other thing that I wanted to bring up, I've gotten a little more involved with the Community Foundation. They have a grant program. The 2 to 10,000 is, the deadline is April 15th. The under 2,000 is any.
It's always in road. That's like,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so, but they did at one time grant one to the Conservation Advisory. So if we had something, you know, discreet, like planting on a certain street or, you know, it's something that could perhaps somebody wanted to look into that. I'm now on the board of that, so I can't really be involved, but I didn't know that they had all these grants available, and so that's something that, you know, we could think about taking advantage of, so.
I think it would be cool, like, we were talking, we always bring it up, like Rochester's the lilac city or whatever, they have all these lilacs, all different kinds of lilacs, and they have to go kind of throughout the spring. If we could kind of conceptually come up with something that we could really go for, like red buds or something, and then we could go for like a Niskuna Community Foundation grant to like just put in a block of them, you know, all along Lexington Ave or something.
And we also did the Ray and Cornelius, which
was awesome.
You know, was an area of town that really didn't have many trees. If we could show our tree equity map,
Mhm.
that this area of town has trees and that we're working with trees, just one little section of town, I think that.
Yes,
Something.
because I think $2,000 would probably cover a block planting sort of perfectly. So if there's an area where you see there's really a lack of trees, that was a great project. Like we met with the neighbor. I mean, a couple of them didn't want them, and I know that it's hard to hear that sometimes. There are people out there that do not want trees planted in their yard. No question about it. But I would say most of them were very excited. They came out, they helped us plant. A lot of people were just.
They're gonna take care of the tree.
They were gonna take care of the tree, and I thought that was one of the best outreaches that we've ever done. I personally feel a great sense of pride when I drive up and down that road because it's so much nicer now.
And then some of the people who didn't want called later.
And wanted, yeah, yep. We had a lot of silver maple
You're
forests that were very old, and the roots were getting into the sewer pipes, and so people had been spending a lot of money to clean out their sewer pipes. And so they were like, I don't want trees, like I just spent like $1 gazillion. But we like planted smaller trees there because it was very confined space, like crabapple and things that don't really mess with sewer pipes. So we won a lot of them over. Like I felt like it was really good. We had ginkgos, red buds, crabapple, and sweet gums.
One more month and drive through.
Yeah, and drive down Dean Street. That's where we've planted 40 trees a year or two.
Too.
Okay, so I just wanted to bring those two things up. So if anybody thinks of a thing I can send out the grant link. But if we think of something to apply for.
So the tree upgrades, like, do you guys remember this?
Yeah, I think that's on our a link is on there from our website, yeah. Now, some of those is like Niskuna High School or Mohawk Commons,
Sure.
which shows,
I understand.
but it's, yeah.
Using the data.
And also, there's another link on our website that Steve did, which shows the red areas that we should go on our website and look at, because that shows areas where we don't have many.
Dense percentage,
Yeah,
and it cover, I think he analyzed maybe satellite data? Not 100% sure, but
so between those two, yeah.
Hillside Ave by the Navy.
yeah, Amy brings that one up a
Navy
lot.
brings that up. That's
Why
what
don't we do that? Amy's on, I mean, it does need trees there. Yeah, we have a council member who lives on there. We could do street trees
Two
there.
blocks.
I feel like you're
How about
the
Windsor?
Windsor. Yeah, so
Your
I
golf
looked at Windsor because, right, there's quite a strip of grass between the not golf course, the multi-use path. That's a wide strip. It's probably like 8 feet, maybe. There are utilities underneath that strip. So originally when Windsor was being built, they withheld planting there because water and sewer lines are there. And the engineer would get really mad at me for saying this, but I personally think that you could still do crab apples or something small that don't interfere with the lower utilities, knowing that if they ever had to patch a section of the pipe, that they might have to take a tree or two down. They don't like that because once they have to take a tree or two down, then the neighbors often come running out, don't touch my tree, but it's like, oh, we have to get to the line. So they're never gonna be like big fans of us planting trees over the lines, but I haven't completely ruled it out, but there is a reason why.
It is a very unmiscuna area. It's so stark.
Yeah, because the trees are so set back from the road, because you have the road, then you have that strip, then you have the bike path, then you get into people's yards. There's like,
And not everybody has a tree in there.
and not everybody has a tree in the yard, so
It's very hot.
it's really,
Yeah.
it's very hot.
At 5 o'clock, they're coming home.
It's really
Yeah.
not a tree lined neighborhood, which is unusual. It's, And I would like to see exactly where those lines are, because you might be able to, you really only need to be like 5 to 7 feet off of the lines. If they're offset a little, you may still be able to get some trees in there.
Do we have a right of way? The other side of like people's lawns,
Oh.
like my old Niskuna tree?
A little, probably not a lot would be my guess. Like I'd have to research it for you. My guess is it's probably only a foot or two. But Windsor Drive is a huge right of way. One of the things that we talked about doing with it once when we were trying to get the road connection go through, was making it Like if you go into Glenville at one point, there's a real big road like that, and they actually just cut a section of the road out into the trees in the middle. Which
Oh,
is
yeah.
actually like traffic coming. So you separate the lanes because the pavement was wide enough, and then they just did trees like right along the middle, which hopefully wouldn't interfere with the utilities and much. But the Windsor Drive residents did not want that.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be happy.
I know.
It's like Lexington, only
Yeah.
smaller, yeah. You can actually see it if you're driving down Route 50. If you drive down Route 50, there's a couple of new developments that they put, like if you're going from Glenville to Freeman Bridge Road on the right, if you just look down some of those newer streets, you'll see they split them, cut them, and it's not, I mean, it's only like 4 or 5 feet wide. And then they have a line of trees in there. It's beautiful.
Okay, so yeah, think about that. If we wanted to do the larger grant, we would have to do something by April 15th. Have to do a smaller one. Keep doing it anytime.
Is that something that the town, the highway department would then have to be part of, you know, as far as like the planting? or-
We have to ask, but what Carol and I talked about is actually just seeing if we could, you know, if we just took it from cradle to grave, it didn't bother them, as long as they signed off on it and said it's okay. We could say like, this is our idea for this, we're gonna use grant money, we're gonna get it all planted, we're gonna hire a contractor, it'll be fine. I know we can't do that for our normal plan, because it's union work and the guys have to do it. But if we were to take a very specific section and, you know, like maybe even hire an engineer to design the streetscape for us and then put it out to bid, it may be okay. Like, I think we'd have to run it past them to be 100% sure. But what we'd like to do, because we really don't struggle from budget. Like, we really don't struggle with being able to buy the trees. We are able to buy the trees. What we struggle with is executing and getting them in the ground and watering them and not weed whacking them. That's what we struggle with.
Okay, well, moving on to the reports, I sent out, well, we had a public outreach subcommittee meeting Tuesday. To talk about Arbor Day, and so we have the Excel spreadsheet, which I sent out to you all. So again, it's April 29th, we're hoping everybody, the council will be there from 11 to 1. And then if you're free on the Friday at 2 o'clock here at Town Hall, prep the trees, and get them ready. So, I've reached out to several, organizations, and we have several coming. Albany Pine Bush, Capital
We heard
Reason.
about it in my other committee meeting yesterday
Oh, did you? Are you on the?
on the Friends.
Oh, great.
That's cool.
That's neat. The Capital Region Prism, which is going to talk about invasive species, and I told them specifically about spongy moth, have information on spongy moth, and also about native gardens. I haven't heard back from Preeti on the pollinator gardens, but she often comes. Some of this didn't, oh, maybe it did on yours. So Schenectady Soil and Water Conservation District, Nick is coming. National Grid is coming, the Mohawk Hudson Land Conservancy. 2 master gardeners are coming. And I did hear back from the Silent Wings Live Raptor program, and they said they would come. So they're gonna bring some birds of prey.
That's gonna bring people in.
Yeah, I think that'll help.
Awesome.
So, and we did choose, we have 18 different variety of trees that we're gonna hand out, so people can't say that they have a limited selection. If they can't find one out of 18, although they do run out early. We still haven't figured out,
I had to cancel the blueberries because they were too expensive.
oh,
So I think we're down to 17.
okay, that's good.
So we're gonna have raspberries and blueberries, but no blueberries.
Okay, and Amanda is writing a description on each so that sometimes they ask, you know, well, how big does it get? What soil does it need? So she does a nice description that we should hand out with them and also put it on our website.
So you're gonna advance, it's pretty.
We're getting the Girl Scouts to do a craft activity project.
If you can get Leslie Street to do it, we'll do it. But try hers first, please.
I will ask her.
If she can't, we will though. I have a Girl Scout troop, but if she can get a different one, it would be better.
Last weekend of cookie booth, so that might hinder.
Mine. Oh, the Might Hidden or Leslie.
A true, but I'm trying to find one.
Well, my girls
Oh,
can
my
send me.
God.
I'm just gonna say, I'm right looking at and sell some cookies. No, it's a win-win.
The truth. You know, this is the last Saturday. You want to tell, can we have a cookie? there?
Like, let me ask the supervisor, but I like that, if that, you think that would help bring the Girl Scouts, I think that'd be fine.
If you get the permission, that would be
Yeah.
my next notice. Who wants to do a craft? By the way,
You can also, no, you're, then you're gonna get a bunch of troops.
Um. So I think we have a lot going on. I think we're gonna try to do the town supervisor like a day or so before, or a week or so before, so that we can then put it in the paper and kind of announce the Arbor Day.
Yes, we talked about that. I was trying to convince, Ray, the highway superintendent of that today. But he identified a bunch of places in town hall that we could still plant trees, and he's even willing to clear out some invasive buckthorn and stuff and give us some places, like where we lost all those ash trees on the, over by the solar panels, but not blacking them. He's willing to like clear out so that we could actually do a line of trees over time.
Okay,
And he was very excited about planting.
Same.
So, but I don't know if, yeah, I'll keep working on him. But I think we can definitely fit him at town hall, and he's excited about fitting him at town hall. So,
Camera and the second one on the day.
which we could do something like that as well, because we used to always plant our Christmas tree and an Arbor Day tree. So they're used to planting like 2 trees.
yeah, so we could do it with a town supervisor the week before, so we could get it in the paper.
at the town rec center.
Yeah, and then,
He felt like people liked watching the big tree grow and go in the ground. And I was like, well, I think too, but you didn't notice how no one came over then the last time. Or we schedule it so people can pick up the trees, and the people who don't want to see the big tree going around the ground can just leave. But then anybody who wants to has already got their tree come over. Like if we planned it at like 11:30 or noon.
but it's gonna be even
It's
farther
gonna be
away.
farther away. You'd have to like walk quite a ways over to get to where it's planted.
But that's where their car is parked, so.
Yeah,
But-
it's sort of nicer to do it as a PR event, I feel like.
So maybe we could do one, maybe, to your point, we could convince the highway department to do one a week ahead of time, and then,
And then
We
do
could
one at
still
the same
one.
time,
yeah.
just in case people want to see a big tree growing in the ground.
But not have the expectation that people that are
That-
there
yes, right.
are going to be interested in.
I think we should probably get like 10.
I'm trying to think if there's something we could entice them over there with, like they could get a giveaway or something.
Now they're still gonna stand in line to get their.
No, we do that and then do it maybe like if it's from 11 to 1 at 12.
Yeah, that's what I was
We're planting
thinking,
the
at like
tree
12.
and you can go get a. Something.
We should get like
Girl Scout
Is
cookie.
over there.
The Girl Scout cookie booth is over there.
Maybe more like 11:30, because the people who come right at 11 to get their trees, they might hang around for a half an hour and will stay for the planting and the presentation, but they won't stay a whole hour.
Yeah,
But if you're dragging people over to the parking lot, to watch the tree planting, you're not gonna come back. They're gonna get in the car and go.
Yeah.
I get it, too.
Yeah, but they're not gonna stay around for an hour.
If we already have people picking up trees in boxes, we could leave that line to get seated.
Yeah, well, they didn't, like, yeah,
I know, but I was even worse because they were in the process of getting
Do
their
it the
tree.
week before,
just do it.
yeah.
Okay.
And just,
I'll convince him.
okay,
But to satisfy Ray, we can advertise this
When
tree
the-
planting is gonna be happening this day. If you want to see it happen,
Um,
come watch it, yeah. And then he thinks people will see it, well, they'll be in television.
and he was trying to read in paperback or the birch. He said just pick which one you like.
okay, okay. So I'll do that, let's see what's.
So if we're gonna plan it over there, which one would be? For that?
I think actually both seem like they would be okay. It's not super wet, so I think you could put either.
And there is, oh, the tricolor beach is too big.
The tricolored beach actually might, they sometimes need a little partial shade. That might, it might fry them. I think we should stay between the paper.
Okay, let's take the paperwork. You know it's there. It's, it has it already,
Mhm.
so we could just get it, so. Okay. I don't know how we get it.
Hey, I can call Northern.
Oh, it's not Northern,
Oh,
it's
it's not-
Troy's.
Oh, it's Troy's. Oh, that's okay. I can call Troy's.
Okay,
I thought that was Northern for some reason.
okay, so I think that's everything with the public outreach right now. John, I noticed in the meeting minutes, did you see that? That you had said.
Why did you say that? It's gonna be enough. It sounds better than what I really said.
Did you want to do? You had mentioned about people taking pictures of their previous tree.
Oh, right, that, I did actually kind of say that. It was just not just a thought, it's a thought that it has to happen now. It's just, I thought it might be fun. With all the histories of the Arbor Days, if we somehow can have some people showing evidence that here's a tree that I got 10 years ago. This is the way, this is what it grew up into. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so we don't have to worry about that.
Not for this year, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we got like, I don't know, how many years have we been doing every day? Like 6 or something like that?
A Eastern Red Cedar from our very first Arbor Day, which was super cold and we had a bunch of trees left over. And it's taller than I am now. So.
I have a picture of me that's like this.
See?
Now, like maybe.
Like,
Mine.
we're gonna-
That's those pawpaws, cause sometimes we have leftover pawpaws and they were like this and now they're like this maybe. Waiting for them to show up.
We'll have to see, maybe it's on the fast growing.
The Eastern Red Cedar, it's taller than I am. It's pretty amazing.
Well, maybe we can start encouraging people to take a picture of it every year. So you never.
It's like the, what was that? What was
The understood.
yes, yeah, the other. Right, they had one of the little things that was about. He did that and.
Yeah.
So anyways, I think that's everything for the public outreach. What about the tree master plan?
I'm gonna, sorry. I really wanted to do more on it today and then I. So
Okay,
I'm gonna be looking for next meeting for that.
and that's in your report. We don't have to do anything too. And the consultant is still with us.
I'm waiting on me. Calls me kind of regularly. No,
Tree planting, you have about the climate warriors.
so I just wanted to give you guys an update. Dave came last meeting and was able to meet with the Niskuna High School students. They showed me a presentation that they were putting together for the Iroquois Middle School. Which I think you may have mentioned they were concerned that Iroquois Middle School is taking down a decent amount of trees with their new project. So they had identified an area where they want to replant and identified some things that they wanted to replant. I thought the presentation was really great. I was really happy they shared it with me and I think it was also helpful. They had a couple pictures that weren't the right species and things like that. So I gave them some good guidance for updating it. And then their next step is going to be to present that to the school. I love their enthusiasm. Their goals are super awesome. They were hoping to be able to plant this spring. I did say we'll support whatever timeline that they can get, but it's they're still in the middle of construction. So if they do get the schools to say spring, fine, we'll go up there. We're happy to work with them. But I did kind of tell them, construction wise, it may actually end up working better to be fall.
Construction.
I
mean, I would have thought that they would be somewhere on school construction is enough.
So I might be able to bring it up. Where they want to plant them is actually where there's a decent amount of drainage work that the school is doing. So I don't know the extent that they're doing it, but I know they even got a permit with the Army Corps of Engineers to mess around a little bit with the wetlands where the drainage is going. And like if you're standing at the Iroquois Middle School and looking like straight back out, there's quite a bit of wetlands all the way at the back. That's where that's where the climate warriors wanted to plant the trees. But I am also worried that that's where they're gonna be pointing some of the drainage and stuff. So I'm not an expert on what the schools are doing, and I was like, I love this presentation, and you've got our 100% support, and we'll come out and help you pick the species and do whatever you guys need for us to do. But the two things were, it's okay to be flexible on your schedule here. If you can't make spring work, we're here for you in the fall. And if they're able to come and talk to you guys directly, I would love for them to. I'm gonna see what their next steps are and then try and keep you guys in contact. It was a lovely presentation. I was very impressed with them.
This is middle school?
They're high school,
Or high school?
but they targeted Iroquois because I think that's the most disturbance and lots of trees for the towns or the schools programs. So
Go ahead.
I was gonna bring this up. I have a concern in high school. They're doing the same thing, right? Right behind my house, there's this long strip of trees that has been there, you know, forever. And they just this week, they've gone in and taken down everything except for maybe like a single line of trees between the yards and it's like the practice baseball field and what's going to be like, I don't know, softball field or something like that. Over kind of tucked in the corner there. So, you know, I just wanted to throw that out there, that I think.
well, we can mention that to them too.
And I had, when Dave was here,
High school.
said they could
Yeah.
have a booth for Arbor Day, but I don't know if that makes sense or not.
So, I think right now they're working on, because I think they have more under their umbrella than just one replanting
Okay.
plan, but this is definitely what they're working on right now. I saw the school plans very early on because of Seeker, and I was concerned because they're actually putting the fields very, very close to the town of Niskuna homes.
Yeah.
I pushed back as hard as I possibly could on them to pull those fields back. Unfortunately, they are not subject to the town of Niskuna zoning review in any way.
I'm wondering about that.
So-
I don't have any input.
We
They could
really don't. We were able to put some comments in through Seeker, which is the state environment. Well, you know, she used to be on
Yeah.
PC, but but that was the limit of our ability because the schools are a higher form of, because they're regulated by the State Department of Education, which is a higher form of government than the town. So like, we don't do building inspections, we don't do site plan. We, as a tree council, aren't able to look at what trees they are taking down and then replanting. The only way that I have any leverage on them is to really push back on any of their environmental impacts because those are not immune. And I did in that particular instance, but I don't think that the plans were changed. Those fields are very close to the people's backyards, and it's actually quite an upgrade. So my suggestion on that would be, as a resident, to call the schools. Call them and say, please stop taking the trees down and don't grade so close to my house.
They do have a lot of buckthorn, so maybe some of what they're taking down is good,
Mhm,
because it is invasive.
mhm. Yeah, it is a mixture. There's, you know, some good sized trees that came down. And like the line kind of makes an L shape, so it's behind my house and then it goes on the side of my house, so I did meet with them.
Did you? That's good.
About the drainage along that side, because all the water was coming into our yard and the neighbors, you know.
Because it's sort of graded. Yeah.
Yeah, so they said, oh, we're putting in this state of the art, you know, drainage system to account for all that, and pointed out some things that I wanted them to do, and luckily it was on like just over the edge of school property versus like my property, I'm not sure, but you know. So anyways,
Continuing to communicate with them, I think, is definitely the best. It's good that you met with them. And even just talking to the contractors in the field can sometimes help.
yeah,
If for some reason the drainage really gets bad, you can call the town. The town does have some leverage if there's negative impacts directly adjacent to the property line. But we can't regulate inside the property lines. But if negative impacts are coming from inside the property lines out, then we can start leveraging things again. The schools are tough.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I have a smaller
Sure.
website. I was signing up for the tree planting and knew nothing about trees. I went to learn about trees. And I opened the identification guide.
Hmm.
And if you get to about page 10, it stops.
Oh, interesting.
And all the information is page.
Is that the one that Amy made?
This is the Arbor Day Foundation.
Oh, the other.
Yeah, just so you know, so you go in and tell when it is. There's like
Well,
70.
Not a guru, that's the problem.
We are.
Oh, that reminds me, we're still struggling with getting the Instagram account over to Amy. I haven't reached out to Faith Smother yet. I'll do that. But, we're trying to take that over. We had a high school student who was doing it and was moved down to college and
What was the category?
Yeah,
Only happening here, or does that happen at home?
Okay.
So
Louis,
not our
she's
Wi-Fi.
high school representative for State Magic Council. She's also on the Climate Warriors. Well, maybe one of the Climate Warriors might be interested, and then that would be good too.
Yeah.
I loved their presentation. It was really great. I would like for them to do it. You guys.
yeah, we love this. So I think that's everything.
Actually,
Most
Cal,
people-
that's your question. In terms of the booth for the Arbor Day, did we get the Ask an Arborist?
I haven't
mention?
yet. I, there's one person I know, Randy,
Remy, right, yeah.
so I was gonna call him, but I haven't done that yet. But if he can't do it, if we can think of another person, I'll reach out to everybody and see if we know any efforts. So
Somebody,
Yeah.
So excited that the Birds of Prey people or something.
Yeah.
So exciting. That's like we're taking ourselves to the next level here.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to adjourn? Okay. Okay, anybody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, so I guess all in favor. Okay, thank you all, we're covered a lot. So